Hello friends, welcome to Cook to Nourish. In today's episode, I'm going to show you a great dessert, AIP Pumpkin Bread with a fudge sauce. I'm using Beth Blends Nut and Cassava free flour blend here. That's the yellow pack. And I'm using 1.5 cups of that. So add that to a large mixing bowl. It's really a very easy recipe, guys. And then I'm using 1 can of pumpkin puree. This is like about 15-ounce can actually. You could also use homemade pumpkin puree as long as you have it like about the same texture or consistency. So you just dump all the pumpkin puree into this mixing bowl. Add a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. And now we'll add some of the spices. Now I'm using pumpkin pie spice blend here, but since that is not AIP compliant, you can just use 1 teaspoon of ground ginger instead. And then I'm adding 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon as well. Next, we are going to add some vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now, I like to use or add vanilla to even, pumpkin bread because I feel like it gives it a nice flavor, rounds up all the flavor. And then for the sweeteners, we are going to use a combination of coconut sugar and molasses. So I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of coconut sugar because I tend to have things on the less sweeter side, but you could add up to 2 tablespoons of coconut sugar, and then we add 2 tablespoons of molasses. Now molasses is a really nutrient dense food, and I use blackstrap unsulfured molasses. Now for the gelatin, guys, I'm using unflavored gelatin. You use 2 tablespoons of unflavored gelatin and dissolve it in hot water. That is 1/4 cup to plus 2 tablespoons of hot water. Now, I'm sorry guys, the way I did it here is not really ideal. What I would recommend is you first wet the gelatin a little bit, with cold water before adding the hot water. That is the best way to make sure that there are no lumps in the gelatin. As you can see here, I'm actually struggling a little bit where I have to whisk it a lot for all the lumps to go away. So this is really not the ideal way to mix gelatin, and I'm sorry, I was just in a rush while recording the video, so I didn't do that. But ideally, sprinkle some cold water on the gelatin first to help wet it before you add the hot water. Okay, so that way you will not have this lump issue at all. So you need to get like a nice well dissolved liquid without any lumps, with all the gelatin dissolved, and add that to your mixing bowl as well. Now you just kind of mix everything a little bit together, and we have only one more ingredient left, and that is a coconut milk to add a little bit more moisture. So I'm just mixing all the wet with the dry to make sure all the flour is kind of mixed or wet. You can also use a electric mixer, but I didn't feel the need to do that. I'm just using a whisk by hand, and adding the coconut milk here. So about 2 tablespoons will do it, and that way you get like a really wet dough. This is like a mix between like a somewhere between a batter and a dough. Like it's not really like a free flowing batter, as you can see, but about this texture that you have here, like really wet dough. And then I have a prepared pan here where I have greased it and placed parchment paper on top of a loaf pan, and that's the size for baking. That's the size of the pan for baking. Just smooth out the top a little bit before just placing it in the oven. You bake it at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 1 hour. So now that time is like, guys, really check for doneness. After 50 minutes, keep checking by inserting a toothpick. For me, it took 60 minutes. Now, even after you get it out of the oven, let it cool completely before you do this. Let it cool completely for at least an hour before you get it out of the pan and before you attempt to cut it. So I'll show you why. So now it's like less than 1 hour, and that's why when I cut it, you will find that some of the bread is still like very soft, and it kind of see it's coming onto the knife. So let it cool completely before you attempt to slice it. You can even keep it in the refrigerator for an hour and then try cutting it. So when it's completely cool, it's much easier to cut it, as you can see. There you go. So you can enjoy the bread as is, or you can make this quick fudge sauce that I made using molasses, maple syrup, and a little bit of raw cacao. But it's up to you. Now the recipe for that sauce is on my blog post, so I'll link that in the description. Hope you enjoy this recipe and try it. Thank you for watching.